to confront this absence, not as a gap, but as a structure. This project began with a simple but urgent conviction that the history of social thought, as we have inherited, it is not merely incomplete. It is selectively constructed. And so, this book is an act of what we call intellectual archaeology, a process of uncovering what has been buried and restoring what has been deliberately placed outside the frame of knowledge. At its core, this volume is built upon three central claims. First, that women have always been present and have actively contributed to the social thought and social theory across history. Second, that these contributions have been systematically rendered invisible within dominant narratives of sociology. And third, that there are multiple ways of knowing, being, and theorizing society, beyond the narrow frameworks that have come to define the discipline. But how does such invisibility happen? How do entire intellectual traditions disappear? Through our research, we arrived at 5 interrelated mechanisms, not as isolated events, but as overlapping processes. Amnesia, a collective forgetting where memory itself is never built. Neglect, where voices are known, yet deemed unworthy of inclusion. Oblivion, a failure to even look in the right direction. Blackout, the silencing or destruction of archives and intellectual traces. And finally, erasure, the most deliberate act where women are written out even after being seen. Together, these are not accidents of history. They are dimensions of what we understand as a broader structure of power-shaping knowledge production. And yet, despite all this, the women in this book were not merely reacting to the world around them. They were producing sociology. They were analyzing power, questioning social structures, articulating visions of justice, and transforming their societies, often before sociology itself was named as a discipline. So, what this book does is not simply to add women to the canon. It does something far more radical. It asks, what if the canon itself is wrong? What if sociology, as we know it, is not universal, but partial? What if it has mistaken its own limits for the limits of the world? This is why this book moves beyond recovery. It is not only about making women visible, it is about repositioning the very foundations of knowledge. It is about shifting what we call 0 point, the place from which knowledge claims to speak universally, while remaining blind to most of humanity. The women in this volume, across geographies, languages, and centuries, offer us something profoundly important. Not only histories to recover, but concepts to think with. Not only voices to hear, but frameworks to learn from. They expand the sociology, they expand what sociology can be. And perhaps most importantly, They remind us that knowledge is not the property of a single tradition, a single geography, or a single gender. So today, as we launch this book, we are not simply celebrating a publication. We are opening a conversation across disciplines, across languages, across histories, and most importantly, a conversation that invites us to listen differently, to see differently, and to think differently. Because in the end, this book is not only about the women we have recovered, it is also about the ones we have not yet found.
Thank you so much. So I'll just start with my part of the presentation, but I would like to call our guests who are here to the stage first, if that's okay. So first I would like to invite Professor Seyed Farid Alatas, who's a professor of sociology and anthropology. He has been teaching at the National University of Singapore since 1992. Prior to that, he has taught at the Department of Southeast Asian Studies at the University of Malaya. Currently, he is jointly appointed to the Department of Malay Studies, which he also headed from 2007 to 2013. So I would like to request Professor Farid Alatas to kindly join us at the stage. I would also request Professor Seyed Javad Miri, who is a Swedish-Iranian public intellectual, sociologist, and professor of sociology at the Institute of Humanities and Cultural Studies. He is known for his expertise on social theory and Islamic thinkers and has written more than 100 books in English and Persian. His latest edited book by him in English and published by Brill is Sigmund Freud as a Critical Social Theorist, Psychoanalysis and the Neurotic in Contemporary Society. So Professor Javad, may I please request you to come to the stage? So, Professor Claudio Pinheiro is a professor of Asian and African Studies at Rio de Janeiro Federal University in Brazil. He is also the chairman of CEPHIS program and visiting professor on critical higher education studies at Nelson Mandela University. His agenda includes knowledge production and circulation and structures of power, slavery, and forms of dependency, both observing the durable effects of colonialism in the institutionalization of power in the global South. So may I please request Professor Claudio to join us here, who has flown in almost 2 days to join us from Brazil. May I also request Professor Tasneem Khairji, who is a social scientist specializing in political sociology. She is currently Assistant Professor of Sociology at Ibn Khaldun University in Istanbul. She holds a PhD in Sociology from the Université de Quebec in Montreal. She taught Sociology and Anthropology both in Canada and in Tunisia, and is the director of the Jasmine Foundation for Research and Communication, working since 2013 on issues of governance in the context of democratic transition, political transformations, and social movements, with a focus on women and youth political participation. Through an extensive experience in projects, research, and action research that she co-designed and implemented through her work in research and civil society, she has developed a deep knowledge and expertise of the Tunisian and MENA context. So please welcome Professor Tasneem Khairji. May we invite Bushra Bulush, who is an educational professional and higher education administrator with extensive experience in educational leadership, curriculum development, and international collaborations. Since 2007, she has held academic and administrative roles across diverse institutions, leading initiatives in student development, interdisciplinary education, and international programs. She has contributed to global education projects through the Turkish Marif Foundation. She currently serves as head of the International Relations Office at Ibn Khaldun University. Bulush is a PhD candidate in curriculum and instruction at Yildiz Technical University, where her research focuses on AI-driven talent mapping and personalized professional development in higher education. So we have other contributions. Yes, please give her a big hand. I'll mention the names, but I would like to call, if it's okay with other contributors like Suraya and Marwa, if I could request Ibrahim Osobo to the stage. Is that okay? Okay. So I will request Ibrahim Osobo, who is from Nigeria, who is an Islamic historian, storyteller, map maker. He has made the map that we are going to use for our book cover as well. Best known for designing the Route to Mecca map board game, which brings the spiritual journey of Hajj to life through interactive learning. He is also the author of the forthcoming books, The Virtue of the Birds, From Sacred Text to Scientific Wisdom, and Sahaba Love Story, Illuminated by Their Faith, which explores the intersection of Islamic teachings, natural science, and the personal stories of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He has presented his research on Islamic civilization and Black history in Islam at museums, universities, and institutions, aiming to highlight the profound contributions of African Muslims to world history and epistemes. Through his work, he seeks to enrich the understanding of cultural heritage and historical legacies of the Islamic intellectual tradition. So, thank you very much. So, coming back to the book, I'd just like to start with this very short anecdote and story. I'd just like to say that I'm recalled of this hadith in which means that a good friend is like misk or a very beautiful fragrance. So even if you don't apply that fragrance, some of this fragrance is, it can be coming from you even if you are afar. So for me, Dalal Bajes has been that beautiful friend who has dragged me literally into this project and made me a co-editor with her, and we have together dragged in so many more people. So I truly believe that many of us have good ideas, a lot of us have very inspiring stories, but I feel that ideas alone cannot bring in very big projects to life. For bringing a big project together, you need to combine your energies and create a synergy like we can see. So sharing the ideas and then other people believing in those ideas, taking them up and putting them together is what we have in this exploration. And this is also an inspiration for other students, that students having dreams of publishing with publishing houses like Springer and bringing in such an audience. Honestly, this was more like a dream. We had never even thought of something so big in the beginning. So thank you very much for that. So now let's take a look at briefly what is inside this book. So some of the missing women that we have explored in this book, and you know that there are 25 women who are from multiple diverse geographies, languages, and historical contexts. So how do we organize such an array, such a bouquet of missing women into our book? We could have organized them chronologically, but what we thought of was to organize them by themes. So as the book project progressed, the themes started emerging themselves. So the first theme is about women's political consciousness and activism. The first theme brings together women who engage directly with structures of power. Empires, legal systems, political transformations. Figures such as Gulbadan Begum, Mukhlisa Bubi, Halide Adib, and Fatima Sayyah. They were not merely observing societies, they were actually shaping it. Their work forces us to rethink a fundamental assumption that women were absent from political and sociological thought in earlier periods. We can look at Gulbadan Begum and her Hajj expedition, an all-female Hajj expedition in that era. And we are reminded that what we think of coming towards things in modernity, they have already been explored by women who came before us and then forgotten. So they were not absent, they were theorizing power, often from within its most complex spaces. Then we move on to theme 2, which is about literary consciousness and educational reform. The second theme moves up into the realm of language, literature, and education. Women such as Nana Asma'u, Ayesha Taimur, and Malik Hifni Naseef, so sorry for always making a mistake with this name, used writing not only as expression, but as a tool of social transformation. What is important here is that much of this work has been historically classified as literature. So we also identify this naming of disciplines and this compartmentalization of education for being one of the reasons of the erasure of women and how that became possible, rather than recognized as sociological thought. And this in itself is part of the problem this book addresses. Coming to theme 3, feminist consciousness and socio-economic reform. The third theme brings together women who engage deeply with social structures, inequality, and reform. Figures such as Zainab Ali Fawaz, Hanna Qurani, Fatima Mernisi, and Mona Abul Fadl were analyzing questions of gender, class, power, and modernity, often with remarkable theoretical depth. Yet their work has rarely been recognized as part of sociological theory. This theme challenges us to reconsider what counts as theory and who gets to produce it. And we also use the subject-object debate, and we also explore who is a sociologist. So these are the kind of interesting debates that you have to read the book to understand. Coming to theme 4, which is the counter-hegemonic consciousness and anti-colonial thought. This is the fourth theme and perhaps one of the most powerful, focusing on women who theorized colonialism, resistance, and liberation. Figures such as Kartini, Nazik Al-Abid, Sajid Nasser, and Sib al-Fahum were not only participating in political struggles, they were thinking through them. Their work reveals that many of the questions we consider modern about colonialism, identity, and resistance were already being articulated by women long before they entered academic theory. Coming to our theme 5, which is about Black consciousness, emancipation, and resistance. This final theme brings us to Black intellectual traditions and emancipatory theory. Figures such as Amy Ashwood Garvey, Wania Bembira, and Maria Beatriz Nascimento represent some of the most powerful yet under-recognized contributions to sociology of race, resistance, and global inequality. What distinguishes this theme is what we might call double marginalization, where women are excluded not only from dominant academic traditions, but also from within revolutionary and intellectual movements. These 5 themes do not represent simply 5 topics, they represent multiple ways of doing sociology, each distinct in its own right. Across politics, literature, reform, resistance, and emancipation, these women were producing knowledge, shaping consciousness, and transforming their societies. Yet they remained outside what we call the canon. So what this book offers is not only a recovery of forgotten figures, but an invitation to rethink the very foundations of how we understand knowledge, history, and sociology itself. Thank you very much. I would request Dalal Bajes to join me here and then invite Professor Farid for the foreword. And also I would like to mention Shaima Enes is here, Thuraya Al-Nasri is here, Marwa Khadib, they are all contributors to this book. All the contributors online, thank you very much for joining. This is a very big project with 38 contributors involved from 17 geographies. This is not a project that Dalal and I could have brought together. So please remember that projects like this have so many people working at the back end and also so many people working together, including our families also who are here. Dalal's family is here, my family is here as well, and all the families who are not here, they are also helping in support back at the back end. So please remember all these people in your applause, and I'll request Dalal to take it up from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You can start calling Professor Farid,
Yeah.
that he wrote the foreword.
Yeah. So after we have this idea, it was a project at the beginning. It was not only a book, it was a project. We need to do a small search before we started this project. So I contacted my friend and my sister Ayesha, and together we tried to communicate or to contact Professor Farid. You will not imagine how humble and how beautiful his response was. He immediately accepted the idea. He said it's a brilliant idea, and he helped us a lot from the beginning, from the scratches, from the beginning steps of this project. So thank you so much, Professor Farid. And now the stage is yours. He didn't only support us verbally, He was the one who had written one chapter in this book, and also he had written the foreword of this book. So Professor Farid, could you please tell us a little bit about your experience in this project, or how important this project is? You can, if you want, you can sit, or you can just...
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Dalal and Ayesha, for the very kind introduction. Louder. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, that's okay. All right. All right. So just a few minutes to give some background, which might be interesting. In 1996, I was a young sociologist. I had just 5 years before that got my PhD, and I attended the World Congress of Sociology, you know, the IS International Sociological Association Congress, which is held every 4 years. And this one was held in Montreal. And it was the time, I don't remember exactly, I think it was the time when Emmanuel Wallerstein, he was there. He was the president, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. You were there?
Yeah, I was
right.
a student.
You were a student. So, and it was a very important Congress for me. One of the reasons was that it was also attended by my late father, and we were on the same panel. You know, the panel had something to do with indigenization or decolonization of knowledge. And during the same time, in those years at the National University of Singapore, I was teaching with a colleague, my colleague Vinita Sinha. We were teaching a course on sociological theory, classical theory, and we had started to teach it in a decolonial way, to include in a decolonial and in an anti-masculinist way. So we were including non-Western thinkers and women thinkers, both Western and non-Western women thinkers. And eventually, that course led to the publication of an article on teaching sociological theory, and finally a book on sociological theory beyond the canon that we co-authored. But at this conference, when I was at this conference, and we had just started teaching this course, I attended a session which had something to do with women's contribution to sociology, and there were some well-known American and Canadian women sociologists. If I remember correctly, one of them was Lynn MacDonald, and that's right, yeah. Now at that session, I mentioned Vanita and my course and what we are planning to write and all that. Now the thing that really struck me then, the people in the session had no interest in what we were doing, because they were only interested in recovering Western women thinkers. They had no interest in, women thinkers outside of the West. So they were anti-androcentric, but at the same time they were being Eurocentric. So, and that is where I think we are different, because we are both anti-androcentric and anti-Eurocentric. I thought that's just an interesting, story to give. So the thing about being anti-Eurocentric and anti-androcentric, in the whole talk about decolonization, the obsession is with Eurocentrism, but there are many other hegemonic orientations, which include androcentrism, sectarianism, traditionalism, ethno-nationalism, and so on and so forth. So we need to free ourselves and to gain autonomy from all these different hegemonic orientations. Now, in this book, of course, is dealing with both androcentrism and Eurocentrism. It's very clear from the thinkers that are featured. Now, after decades and decades of talking about Eurocentrism and androcentrism, we have hardly made any progress. I mean, of course, these publications like we are doing here are very important, but it comes very late, unfortunately. Nevertheless, we have to do it. When will academia change and be more open to diverse ideas? This is an example, but there are other problems. What about sectarianism, right? Can we get away from our anti-Sunni, anti-Shiite thing and have books that reflect the diversity of thought from different, people from different orientations within Islam? I think all of this has to do with a bad attitude. I refer to Claudio's forthcoming volume in which I have a chapter, which is about decolonial attitudes. Southern attitudes, yeah. You know, there's an expression in English that you have an attitude, which means you have a bad attitude. But I want to turn this around. The problem is we don't have an attitude, right? To do this kind of work, anti-androcentric, anti-Eurocentric, to do this kind of work, we have to have an attitude. And there are many attitudes that we should have. I like to refer to two. We should have pride and shame. The problem is, we don't have shame that we are cut off from our intellectual traditions. As Muslims, as Indians, as Hindus, as Turks, whatever, however you define your tradition, culturally, religiously, doesn't matter. We don't have any sense of shame that we are cut off from our traditions, that we know Marx and Weber and Durkheim and Tocqueville very well, but we cannot name thinkers from our own tradition. Or even if we can name them, we cannot describe their concepts and their theories. Right? This is a problem. We need to develop this shame. And then, of course, from shame comes pride in our tradition. Right? So attitude is very important. So we need to change attitudes before we can change the orientation and then produce the kind of work that will represent our various intellectual traditions. So in this case, as far as androcentrism is concerned, we have to develop a sense of shame at being separated from our intellectual tradition, and the shame at ignoring half of humanity's contribution. Right? Half of humanity's contribution. I mean, women. So, unfortunately, many people will pay lip service to the idea, not because of shame, but because it's politically correct to recognize women's contribution. That's not enough, because it doesn't result in serious work. We need to have a sense of shame and a sense of pride in order to do this recovery work. So this is, to me, a great contribution to autonomous knowledge, because it is creating autonomy it is contributing to the creation of autonomy from two hegemonic orientations, androcentrism and Eurocentrism. I really applaud Dalal and Ayesha for putting this together, and I hope, I'm sure, and I hope, and I'm also sure that this is just the first of more works to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hujam. Thank you for your contributions. And now, Professor Javad, How wonderful have you spoken about the sociological imagination in Iran during the era where Fatima Sayyah was very famous, but now why? We don't know anything about her. How did we miss her? How she was written out of history? Could you please tell us a little bit about this issue?
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'm very happy to be here, and I really thank you all for making this event to come through. Yes, when the idea first was proposed, I don't know by accident or by fate, I was engaged with another question in my own research in Tehran at the Institute of Humanities and Cultural Studies. I was thinking, how come, I think it was about maybe 10 years ago in Tehran, at Tehran University, there was the anniversary of Iranian sociology, or the history of Iranian sociology, which marked the 80th year of Iranian sociology. And then when I was going through the names and people who were like the most important figures in this long history of sociology, I only detected the names of men. And they were talking about the like fathers of sociology, fathers of anthropology, fathers of different like traditions within social sciences. Then, because you know my own background in academia is a little bit multidisciplinary. I studied when I was a young man in Sweden. I started to study religious studies, and then I went to philosophy, then philosophy and history of science. So I always were interested in looking at different disciplines. So by my own research, I came across a host of names in Iran who were, female, and they were very instrumental in developing what C. Wright Mills calls sociological imagination. But they were like totally absent in the history of sociology and social sciences in Iran. And then I was thinking about something else, and I'm sure all of you have come across. And this is not really related to academic life or intellectual lifestyle. It's like life experiences which you may have since you are born. And this is what actually many phenomenologists, they talk about, life experiences. When I looked around when I started to realize and think about my own life, for some reasons, because my father, during the first period of my life, he was not around, and I realized my mother was doing everything. And then when I looked around, I see women are very instrumental. Most of the hard jobs are done by women. Then I was thinking, how come the only place they are absent is in academia? It seems it doesn't make sense. It's like academia in this sense is like a fabricated life space that only men are included or men are recognized. Then here I remember the method Zygmunt Bauman talks about in his very interesting and seminal work called Thinking Sociologically. He says one of the main maybe duty of a sociologist is to debunking. So he started to debunk a little bit what's going on under the mainstream and male stream of sociology, or how they narrate the story of sociology, at least in Iran, and even as Professor Seyed Farid Alatas said, even globally speaking, that it seems below and beneath the stream there are other stories which needs to be recovered, uncovered, discovered. So I realized, no, it's not like that we have in Iran, for example, only patrons of sociology. There are many Iranian women who have been very much instrumental, and even they have written doctoral thesis in sociology in Germany, I don't know, in France, in America, in England, since middle of 19th century, like 1875 onwards. But most of them disappeared when they were narrated in the mainstream historiography of sociology. One of the most, famous and prominent one was Fatemeh Sayya. And another thing I actually detected, in Iran I detected, I'm sure maybe in different traditions, say in Turkey or maybe other parts of Muslim world or even outside Muslim world are instrumental as well, is that most of people who were very much active within social sciences and in advancing what C. Wright Mills called sociological imagination is the hybrid kind of people. For example, and by hybrid I mean exactly people, for example, whose mother is German and the father is Iranian, or the father is German or the mother is Iranian, or people who for some reason they were not born inside Iran, they were born outside Iran, but then by fate or by accident they came back to Iran. And it seems these hybrid people were able to see things and problems and issues that people who were, for example, only exposed to one tradition or to one language, or they didn't have these hybrid experiences, they couldn't see and detect it. And that is another, I think, important factor in narrating the history of sociological imagination in the Muslim world in general and in Iran in particular. So then I was contacted, I think first by Farid, said something about this project. Then Ayesha and Dalal, we started to exchange email, and I don't know, for some reason, because it took a long time, and many things happened in Iran during these past 3-4 years. So I think normally, I had a friend when I was in Sweden. Maybe some of you know him. His name is Mehrzad Burjerdi at Syracuse University in the US. During the 80s, I think mid-80s of 20th century, I'm so old, I remember 20th century as well. So he came to Iran, do his PhD, and he was collecting some data and doing interviews. Then he came back, and we started to exchange emails. I asked him, how was Iran? He said, Iran is wonderful. I said, why? In what sense is wonderful? He said, most of the things we read about the history of Western Europe, like royalism, like revolution, counter-revolutionary, liberalism, communism, all of that, for example, happened maybe during 200 years, all of them happening at one time in Iran at the moment. I said, this is maybe in one sense is good when you look at it from outside, but when you are living it, it will be very heavy and very difficult. So during these past 3-4 years, this project started so many things. So I thought maybe that is for some reason over, or maybe it didn't happen. So I was contacted by Ayesha and said the book exhibition is now here. So I'm very happy to be here and part of this beautiful and exciting project. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Hojam. Also, time is passing very quickly, but we're also feeling that it has so much time has passed. It's only hardly been 2 years, Hojam, since we started the project, not 4. So it was going at a very fast pace. We couldn't even imagine it ourselves. Yeah. So, okay, Professor Claudio is here, and I would just like to, before handing over the mic to him, say that when we invited Professor Claudio for a chapter, we didn't know how we were going to fit in that chapter, because initially we had started with the idea of exploring Muslim women who were missing in sociology. But then Professor Farid, of course, when a person with a bigger vision comes into a smaller project, then he brought in his bigger vision and said, why don't you look beyond the Muslim women as well? So then this became a Global South project. And when Professor Claudio came in, he's also representing multiple organizations. So he said, is it possible that other than my chapter, more chapters can come in from Brazil, because there are younger authors, scholars who are just, very in the initial stages of their journey, and they have never published in a big international journal or publishing house. And we were so excited for that. And we were so happy to see such positive support coming in from academic institutions. These are exemplars in themselves. So we must also look to them as such, that any scholar, anonymous scholar like us, can contact them and ask them to be part of their project, and they not only join it, they write the foreword, they bring in the other contributing authors. So this is really phenomenal in this sense, and an example for others to follow. So with that, I'll just request Professor Claudio to tell us about the Brazilian experience, that is the Brazilian flavors that he's brought in to this project. Please, Professor Claudio, you're most welcome to join over here or here, because this is louder, but if you join it from here, please be loud. Okay.
I can try.
That's better, good? Yeah. And he's flown in almost 2 days to join us over here. So alhamdulillah for having him here. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much, Ayesha and Dalal, for having me here, and Ibn Khaldun University. It's a pleasure to be here in Istanbul with you. So I will start thanking, but also, as you both mentioned, your fathers, your parents. This is my Father's Day today. He's no longer, but it's a very special day for me as well. And the coincidence is quite telling for my story. I also share this anecdote that Ayesha just mentioned from the other side. So I got this email asking to write about Lélia Gonzalez. And two things came across my mind. First, I felt uncomfortable with the very beginning, because it would be another time a white scholar writing about the life of a black scholar. So it didn't feel right to me to do that. So I talked to some people, some of my colleagues, friends, and students, and said, why don't we change it? Otherwise, having someone else writing about that, or having more people writing about that. So in the end, it turned to be 3 chapters about 3 different women. And then instead of myself, we had 9 authors and 1 contributor. And the larger group, like the extended group, working on the debate to make it possible, was of 17 people. So the whole process was like the funniest part of it. Most of the people writing these 3 chapters are coming from social and political engagement with scholarship. So they are not coming through, say, a voyeuristic side of academia, but instead, most of them come to academia from the social movements. And most of what they read about sociology also came from that side. So it is politically informed sociology, if you like. It felt like, okay, this is a good attitude towards knowledge production. We now have this, among these 9 authors, all of them are young, except myself. 5 women, 4 of them are black women, 1 is white, 4 men, 3 of them are black, and I'm the only white writer among the men. All 8 of them are young scholars, and then we also have the translation, which is again a black scholar. So we didn't feel, we wrote it in Portuguese before, then we did collaborative translation among ourselves. So the whole process was conceived to meet with the expectations of the project behind the book. So that to make it like, okay, this is an errand, like this is, we have to do this because you asked it for, so we transformed it into a challenge. Of course, it gave much more work and time to conceptualize what we were doing there, but that was the beauty of it in itself. So I would like, if you allow me, just to mention the names, otherwise they go, they vanish from. So we have Priscila Carvalho, Juliana Marques, Jefferson Nascimento, Tainá Pereira, myself, Bernardo Reis, Igor de Souza, Mariane Rocha, and Isis Vieira. So this is the group of authors. And we wrote about 3 Brazilian women sociologists or social reformists that were at large inspired by sociology and inspired very much the sociological scene in Brazil and Latin America. There were Vânia Bambirra, an economist, very important for the development of dependency theory in 1960s, 70s in Latin America, not only in Brazil. Lélia Gonzalez, very important for developing Afro-Latin American feminism, an inspiration for a lot of people beyond Brazil concerning the black women participation in politics and academia. And Beatriz Nascimento, who was probably one of the most important black activists in 1970s, 80s, until her premature death by feminicide in 1995, when she was herself doing her master's degree. It was really a pleasure to participate in this initiative. Also, I would like to thank Farid for making the connection possible. And although, the picture speaks for a much more variety scene of authors where women are prevalent and black people are prevalent, I'm still a white man here speaking on behalf of this project. And it also tells a bit, or loudly, about how academia is organized politically. So I hope, of course, in the coming new challenges that we are developing, they also get seats like this here, where they can voice projects that go beyond this. I would like to finish just mentioning the group, one of the groups from the civil society in Brazil who is behind this. So that's what that was another important connection between CEFES and the Black Women Decide movement, or the Mulheres Negras Decidem movement, which is probably one of the most influential political movements of black women and beyond in Brazil today and Latin America today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So we have had back and forth many debates and discussions on how a white man can write about black women, but he has to write that without, all the proper things that he needs. And mashallah, the chapters will speak for themselves when the book is out. So that has been a very wonderful job. Thank you very much. So I'll move on to Professor Tasneem Khairji, who has written on Bashira bin Murad, and she's going to be talking about whatever she wants to talk about, the book project or her chapter in particular. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayesha. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. And it's a real pleasure and honor to be with you here this afternoon. Thank you to Dalal and Ayesha, our two mighty warriors. Might I add, this beautiful project was also beautifully managed by them. They did not stop at any obstacle, and they infused a lot of enthusiasm, and which was quite contagious, I should add. So it was a real pleasure to work with you, and I liked also being managed by you, not having to be at the front seat for once. So I have to say, when Dalal especially discussed with me this project, we contemplated, working on it in other arenas, etc. We were not able to, so I was happy at least that we come with something out of it with the book. So I was, very much, I believed in this project from the beginning. I have to say, when I started working, as a sociologist, I didn't work at the beginning on women issues. For me, it was very important to go into those male areas, working on the political. I'm a political sociologist, and I specialize in political philosophy and political sociology. Why? Because usually women are excluded from these issues. So as women in the Western academia, you're only supposed to work on Muslim women, and Islam and women, those poor women and how they need saving, etc. We know the story. For me, it was impossible that I work on such an issue, not because I'm a woman. So I always chose, those topics which are typically, male topics. Political economy development, world system theory, macro level, perspectives. I worked on Emmanuel Wallerstein's theory for my master's, and theoretical foundation. So the more theoretical it is, the more you will find me there. So I avoided the topic of women, as a pest. And but then I needed to also come to the realization that. As a woman, academic in Western academia, we are definitely subjected to this double, marginalization and this double exclusion, which is Eurocentrism and androcentrism. And then when I went to my country, Tunisia, I thought that things probably will be different. In 2012, immediately after the revolution, I went there. And I thought, I will contribute something. I understand transitions, but then I need to be humbled and, stop and listen. And this led me to civil society work and, working both on research to understand issues related to, those types of deep changes. And I needed also to understand that, just exactly as what I was living in the Western world was reflected also in the context of, the South. Western universities are something, but also even in Tunisia universities, the same, issues could be found. As a hijabi, I was not supposed to be there in the most prestigious universities teaching, social science, because that's typically a secular leftist field, not for a woman who's wearing hijab. So the issue of women started to become, more important for me. Besides, becoming a mother and, being sent back to your condition as a gender, as a woman in academia, you're reminded all the time, no, but you have kids, but you're pregnant, but you're there. So then the issue of women and working on this androcentrism became much more important for me. I became also very sensitive to it when I saw, most recently, that after the experience through which my country went through of, opening to, a more inclusive, integration of women's role in politics, to the young people's role, through different, rounds of elections, etc., with women being represented in, for example, local municipal councils. Half of the municipal councillors were women. 20% of the mayors were women. So this was a period ripe with openness and democratization, ideals. And then immediately, Tunisia. This parenthesis has been closed, sadly, in 2021. And the exclusion of the women who were part of this process, at all levels, started to be very palpable. So when I was approached by Dalal and Ayesha, this was something that I was going through, this exclusion, closing the parentheses, forgetting, erasing the participation of women just because they were not secular, just because the political party that presented more women to elections, who made more women participate in parliament, etc., was just not the classical secular political party. So this also made me link with previous exclusions, not just the more recent ones, but also the exclusions from, during, the first years of the independence and continuing forward. I discovered, for example, a person like Bshira bin Murad, a woman I didn't know about when I was a student. When during the educational programs that we took at school, at no time did I know that this woman just contributed just as the president of the country, Bourguiba, who was the leading figure of the independence of the country and of the decolonization movement. She was just active as him, and yet this woman was assigned to residence and was prevented from participating in any public activities. Nobody knew about her. She was totally erased. Her role was erased. So I really, took it as, a personal task of going to, bringing back her story and focusing on why was her legacy totally erased. What I discovered, through my work with many women organizations in Tunisia and this work of memory that, we are undertaking, reconnecting with the decolonial struggle, the liberation movement struggle in Tunisia, because what we're going through right now reconnects us also with that same struggle. So in the chapter that I contributed in the book, I share some of the insights I got from reconnecting with the history and with the legacy of this woman. So I discovered that she founded the first Tunisian Islamic Women Union in 1936 when she was only 23 years old. And this was a time where, there was this clash between either the colonial ideals, progressive ideals of women liberations. This is how the French colonial rule presented itself. It's there with a mission of liberating women. And on the other side, there were the traditional criteria for what it means to be a woman in that society. So traditionalism was kind of a conservative ideals against the French rule and departed even with the Islamic heritage and with the Islamic, teachings on the role of women in society. So I was very much interested in how she was actually struggling on two fronts, being the daughter of the Mufti of Tunisia and being educated by the best religious scholars and being educated in philosophy, literature, etc. She was a writer. She was defending her ideas, but also was very active in organizing protests on the streets. And she was both trying to convince the local elites that there's no way to liberate the country as long as half of society is paralyzed. So, liberating women and is not against the religious teachings, and at the same time, it is a must for political struggle. So I found this combination very, very interesting, and I tried to bring it in the chapter that I wrote. Also, I tried to understand how despite the struggles she organized many protests, she was imprisoned, under the French rule. She created many branches of this union, Islamic Union, for women, even in the rural areas, everywhere in the country. She was very key in the National Liberation Project. Yet, immediately after independence, what we find out is that she is totally excluded. So I try to understand why she was excluded. Was it a matter of, competition with other political figures? What is it exactly about? So that's what the chapter focuses on. I will not disclose more for you to try to read it yourselves. So I want to highlight, though, before ending, is that this was not about reconstructing only her trajectory. It's about answering the broader question. And this question is very important for me. So what kind of figures and what kinds of knowledge disappear when certain models of modernity and women's rights become dominant? When we try to observe, how the decolonization movement in Tunisia happened, etc., we see that there are multiple genealogies of women's struggles, yet they are erased for the benefit of a state-led feminism from the top down, erasing all of those struggles. So I think that her trajectory invites us to rethink the relationship between modernity, coloniality, religion, and gender, and to recognize that the history of women's rights in contexts like Tunisia is far more plural and contested than official narrative suggests. So in that sense, this book is not only about the past, it's also, as you highlighted earlier, it's about expanded what we recognize as, legitimate sociology today by widening its boundaries and acknowledging different intellectual traditions. And perhaps in doing so, we're not only recovering some forgotten figures, we're also transforming the way we understand knowledge itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to move on to Busha Bulush, who's also contributed a chapter to our book, and she's also the person who has organized and with her team today's program. So Busha, please.
Thank you, Ayesha. So I want to remember in the beginning, when Ayesha came with this idea, Hocam, you should write about Halide Edip, I said, no, I'm not the right person because I'm a chemist and mathematician, no idea about literature, history, sociology, and even though. So she said me, Hocam, please, you can do this, and she encouraged me that I can. And I said, after 1 week, I said, Ayesha, I cannot do this because all remarkable names are on the table and who am I, why I am, and now today I feel the same thing. Why I am sitting in here, I really don't know. But I'm very happy to be with you. Thank you that you all welcome. So I want to talk about Halide Edip in the beginning, and when the idea came to me, I said, can I change the women? They said, please, Hocam, she's a famous one and be more indeed. And I start to dig about who is Halide Edip in real. So the Turkish ones know about Halide Edip a bit more because our national education system is always having some idea about her. But when it comes to us, when it comes to me and hijabi women in education field, try to be a woman in that area, I thought that there should be something different in that manner. So what I start, as my other duties, I started to dig who is Halide Edip and what I see. I will say some official ones because these are the official ones. She's a novelist. As everyone knows, she's an educator, activist, public intellectual. Okay, these are the official ones, but I look for different. Is there any background? Who is she? Because my mind is generally working in that manner. I have to be critical when I'm trying to understand someone. She born into an elite Ottoman household. There is an American college for girls, and she has the chance to go there. And trained in Arabic, Persian, French, philosophy, and mathematics. That means we have a real intellectual at that times. So I start to understand what she is doing. So I try to see what is the argumentation of her. And as I understand, the West and the East. So you, as sociologists, you know what it means as East and West. I'm not going indeed with this, but what I see, she is trying to understand also like me. She's trying to see what is East, what is West, where is Republican of Turkey after Ottoman Empire is trying to be. So she tried to understand what is happening in general. So in Ottoman Empire, we have located Islamic civilization and there is a Byzantine heritage. So she dig to find what is happening previously, who are Ottomans, and now for the future, who are the Republicans, what Turkey will go. So I learned many about this project, And then sociology come to my table. I try to understand the terminology of sociology, but at least I'm a mathematician. I try to understand what I can do. And I made a list. What she did, accomplished what they done, and what should she do. So, pioneered women's education advocacy, that means she's trying to go to schools, teach people something, and women are in the center of her action. Then shaped national consciousness during the War of Independence. You know our history, so she was an important figure in our history. So brought Turkey's cause and Western audience. Because the help of the American college, she made Western aware of what is happening in Turkey. Then we created a sociological literature for her. But what she should have done? Maybe, I don't know, can we read such kind of things? You are my superior, so you can let me. So I just said what she should have done. There are reform in some contexts, in public contexts, reform versus cultural continuity. So she should have figured out what is happening during that times. Yes, it was a war, so maybe she cannot go indeed with this, but the duality makes her actions not the permanent ones. Then nationalism during these years. So in the nationalist view, she feels that the framework, the nationalism framework, limited her. So the minority voices, plurality, or the other voices cannot be heard very well from her side. And she claimed that she is not a feminist, but she did something labeled as a feminist. But we understand there is no structural way, there is no systematical way to obtain for her, individual rights, the witness of the women. So she couldn't do this in a structural way. So what we saw in her life, there is a leader during that time named Atatürk, and we know Atatürk is the leader of Turkiye Republic during these days, and he was our leader. And she said, I have some problem with your action. So this is the first time that I saw this. Wow, we didn't read in our national program curriculum such kind of events. And I tried to understand why she's doing that. And then I learned she's criticized the effect, activities, and she really fight what can be done without being an enemy. She is standing with him. I am with you. I will help you how to do something. But she tried to be in a critical situation. So this is generally the little information I can give. If not, I should, as I mentioned, I am not the correct person. I am here to support Dalal and Ayesha, and they are generously staying there, moderating this event, and I'm sitting here. I really don't know why I'm sitting here, and I really thank you. You all welcome. Thank you happening this day. Okay.
Thank you so much. So this is one of the stereotypes we want to break, or I think this book will already have done that. That who is a sociologist? So we don't, this compartmentalization of education is one of the things that we ourselves wanted to rupture, and also the women protagonists that we have explored. Through their work, it became very easy, because we could now prove in the conclusion chapter that look, all these women from all these diverse disciplines are developing a sociological consciousness, they are having a social thought, and they are looking at their social problems and they're trying to reform them. So these are sociologists. Oh, Jam, you're a sociologist, please, from the analysis of our book. But anyways, we move on to Ibrahim, who has written about Nana Asma'u, and he again brings a very colorful addition to the trajectory of how education can be. This is an alternative educational paradigm that he has brought to the fore, not only through his contribution in the chapter, but also through his handwritten maps, one of which we have chosen to be on the book cover of our book. So thank you very much, Ibrahim.
May I say before Ibrahim something?
Of course, of course.
I thanked every woman in here, but one of them is very important for me, because we have an artist of the book cover named Hamda. Hamda, I really especially want to thank to you, and a big applause to her, because she is creating our cover book. Thank you, Hamda. Thank you, Ibrahim.
Yes, assalamu alaikum again. I'm highly honored. In fact, I'm shy to sit down on this table because when they called me, I don't know if I should come or if I should sit. Because and thank you for this honor for letting me sit down with that distinguished scholars. I think this is one of the days I will never forget in my life. I don't know what to say right now, but thank you again, and thank you for scholars for letting me sit down on this table with you. When Ayesha, I used to call her sister, Ayesha, she messaged me. I was confused. I thought maybe she wanted to message someone else. Because when I saw the message, I said, no, it's not me. She wants to write this message. And she write me again. I respond to her. I said, I don't think I can contribute to this at all, even though she saw my game, which I designed, Road to Mecca, which shows how the people used to travel from Hajj from 9th century to 16th century and their experiences. So some people were kidnapped on their way to Hajj, and they were sold into the slavery into the America.
Bring the mic closer.
Into the Americas. So Nana Asma Danfodio was one of the characters of the game. So I choose a lot of women around the world to be part of the character of the game. And she saw the game before. So she said, I saw what you do, and I saw the stories you try to create with the game. Because I do storytelling in Istanbul. I take people to museum because my idea is sometimes historians can lie, but architecture don't lie. Because what you see with your, because Allah gives you reference in the Quran, He said, travel to another land and see. What are you going to see? You see the architectures, you see the ruins. And this is what the anthropologists and stuff, because these are evidence for what have existed before. So no matter how you try to, rewrite history sometime, once the structures are there, they still get the real information. So Nana Asma Danfodio, she's not just a woman, she was an educationist that reached our own time. For like 300 years, her legacy still reaches us. So we used to have this thing back home, we call them the Iyala Salatus, which means the mother of the Salawat. So among these women, they come every Thursday to sit down to discuss about, etiquette, how to do. And this is a system that was created from Nana Asma Danfodio, which she called the Yantaru. So Yantaru is a chain of education system where she will teach women. When they graduate, she sent those women to other villages to teach other women. We call it distant learning now. And she did this about 300 years ago. And the legacy did not stop there. It still reached us because I saw my mom doing the same thing. I saw my grandmother doing the same thing. And this is a woman that started the chain about 300 years ago. So the problem we had then is, my mother, we have a lot of story about women, but we don't have it in literatures in Nigeria because after colonization or during colonization, the British said the women belong to the kitchen. We don't have it in our language before. So the education they were giving to our women was based, we call it home econs. And the men were giving grammar schools. They sent them to grammar schools. They didn't teach them technology. So this was a big problem. So many women in Nigeria, so I was making research 2 years ago, which later became what I did on my map today. I call it the evolution of mosque building. So I used to trace mosque and look at the origin. And realize that many of these mosques were built by women in the past. So I was trying to check who are these women. So it ended up that many of them during colonization, when they were unable to go to school or their daughters cannot go to school, they established one of the first private schools. We don't have private schools before during colonization. It was the women that started it because the girls were not allowed into school except if they are Christians or they study home econs. So these women gather money together. We call them the market women. They form association and they started private school. So the first private school we have, maybe we can call it Western education, were created by women in Nigeria. So this is also legacy from Nana Asma Danfodio. So I'm really honored to sit down in front of our great scholars. And thank you so much. It's because of your books and many people you have educated that I am also was able to benefit to even be part of this. And again, I thank you again. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we leave the story of once when some educational institution did not allow admission to some of our brilliant scholars for some time else. But I think that is also an anecdote we could bring in. Formal education is maybe unable to understand these formalized systems of education, are unable to understand the kind of intellectual capacities or potential that is out there, and we must, try and bring that back in. So I would request Mustafa, if you could bring this map and hand it over to Ibrahim, and during that time I would just want him to show this map, open it up and show what a beautiful map maker he is. Just hand this over to him. And after that I would request Thuraya Nasri, who is also a contributor, to share her contributions. But these are some masterpieces, I think, which we need to look at. Later we can look at them in detail, but can you help him as well, Mursa? I think he needs, if one or two people could, yeah, Mustafa and Mursa, if you could just stand behind the map and show, and Ibrahim can just tell us what this map is about. Okay, so he likes to draw maps with his own hands. This is really, really amazing. I think we should, have them for display. He also develops board games from that, like the one he told about, Journey to Mecca. And I think this is something phenomenal. And we also have Dr. Farah Ahmed with us from Cambridge University. And why I'm mentioning Farah is because she works on a Shakhsiya curriculum, and which is very much similar to the halakas that Nana Asma started in Nigeria. So I think this tradition has not really perished. This is continuing, but again, it is less recognized, it is marginalized, and this is what we need to not just rediscover, but also bring to the fore. So this is really amazing, Brother Ibrahim. Thank you so much. With that, we have Marwa Khatib here as well, but she's not willing to share her contributions right now. You have to find out what she wrote in the chapter when the book is out. And also Shayma Anas. So Thuraya Al-Nasri, who will talk about her chapter.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for coming here. I'm so glad and very humbled to be standing here beside my Hojas. I second Seyed Farid Hoja that this project is a step towards something, towards something not gynocentrism, but to make balance between what is androcentrism and gynocentrism, so that none of us feel like they are written out of history. My chapter is about Nazik al-Malaika. In Arab context, she is known for being a poet. And it is argued that she made what is called free poet, al-Sha'r al-Hur. And that's it. We don't know much about her, but when I was reading about her, I realized that she is a lady who actually was very well-read. She learned and read about philosophy. She taught herself Latin, French from books, and then from real people in US and other language schools. And then she taught in universities. But beside that, in the 70s, she wrote a book where she makes observations and reflections and comments about the Arab culture, and she called the book as Fragmentation in Arab Society. And that is very interesting because it means that these women, one of them is Nazik al-Malaika herself, is that she wasn't only a poet, but she was an intellectual person who actually contributed in the literature and something in also what is called today sociology. So I hope we can make more of this project in the future, and thank you for being here again. Nice to meet you all.
So thank you very much. We have contributors online as well. Is there any possibility of, if someone wants to speak, allowing them to say something? Or not? If they can just, is there? Okay, so if you could just ask if anybody wants to say something from amongst the contributors who are online, and then we'll just, have, if you have any question answers, or everybody's here on stage, and you could ask them questions. Yes. I think a lot of people are online, so I just leave it to them. Can this be? Okay, so all our wonderful contributors online, if you'd like to unmute yourself and just say something. Buradan kontrol edebilir. Okay, Elias wants to contribute something? Yes,
Yeah.
please. Majda, go ahead, say something.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
The sound is not clear. Somebody else who has a clearer sound.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, Elias
So,
go first. Yeah.
okay.
Majda, could
I
you
have
please,
written something.
if it can be very brief, because I think the place you're sitting is has a lot of noise.
All right. First of all, I would like to say that it is both a profound honor and a delicate responsibility to speak today about the necessity of restoring visibility and dignity to the knowledge produced in the global south, and especially to the voices of women thinkers from the global south. Uh, of course, whose intellectual contributions have too often remained outside the spotlight of dominant academic traditions. So, among these luminous voices, Fatima Mernissi, who stands not only as a Moroccan scholar, but as a compass that redirected conversations about sociology, feminism, Islam, and modernity toward more humane and plural horizons. So I'm deeply grateful to contribute to this collective work through my chapter titled "Shifting the Compass: Fatima Mernissi Legacy Beyond Western Sociology." In this chapter, I argued that Mernissi was not merely asking to be included within the sociological canon; she was questioning the canon itself, questioning why knowledge has historically been centered around Western male perspectives, while so many other intellectual traditions were pushed to the margin. So I think what makes Marinesi exceptional in that is that she refused rigid binaries. So in my chapter, I said that these binaries, the Eastern versus the East versus the West, religion versus modernity, feminism versus Islam. So instead, what Marinesi was trying to do is to create bridges through an interdisciplinary approach that brought together sociology, history, anthropology, political thought, and Islamic scholarship. She offered a richer and more dialogical understanding of society.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
So
much. I
just
will
just
make a
one thing.
request.
Just
Yes,
want, yeah,
please.
very quickly. So on a personal level, this topic carries a special emotional significance for me because as a male researcher working in the field of women's rights and gender studies in Morocco, I had the immense privilege of meeting Fatima Mernissi back in 2015. So I still vividly remember how pleased she was when she saw me. To see men and women working together in the same struggle for dignity and equality. She admired the idea that the battle was never supposed to be between men and women, but rather a shared battle against injustice, exclusion, and inequality. So that moment remained unforgettable because it reflected the very essence of her thought: dialogue instead of division, solidarity instead of antagonism. So
Thank you
thank you.
so much. Thank you so much. So I'll just make a request. If you could mute yourself,
Yeah.
Elias,
Yeah.
if you could, yeah. So I will just call out the names one by one of who has their hands up. I would really want you to participate, but just keep it less than 1 minute, okay? Everybody is now interested in the book. They're going to get it and read your chapters, inshallah. But I just want you to share your brief thoughts with under 1 minute. So I'll start with Majda.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yeah, we can hear you right clear.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ayesha, and thank you very much, Dalal, for your courage and your leading, the leading role you have taken on this. You have been faced with so many challenges, But like the women we have been writing about, you have conquered all the challenges and have been calm and steady and so collaborative with everybody, and you kind of included everyone. To say thank you from the depth of my heart. I feel the same thing as many of the contributors who spoke about their place in the book and how they felt like they concerned about whether they would be able to contribute or not. I also had the same feeling because I'm a professor of English literature and comparative literature. And you kind of encouraged me and supported me with all the resources I needed to venture and write in a book on sociology. So thank you for this. And this inclusion is actually what we expect from female scholars. I'm a bit biased, but to women scholars, but we have male scholars here who have actually talked a lot about how we really need to challenge the mainstream and the male stream of thought. And I'm very happy to be among these wonderful scholars. My chapter is about Ayesha Abdurrahman, who is known as a literary and as a scholar of Islamic studies. But I dig deeply, and I also found that she was a pioneer in sociology. And of course, with the help and the support of Ayesha and Dalal, I managed to write about her contribution to education, to problems in the villages, and how she wrote about the suffering of peasants in Egypt before 1952 and after that. It has been a real pleasure sharing in this book, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and thank you very much for including me.
Thank you so much. So could I request Professor, please give her a round of applause. Professor Robert Williams, who is based in USA, would you like to add your very brief comments, Professor?
I don't have a camera that works at the moment.
No worries, we can hear you.
So I left a brief message in the chat. I said the greetings and peace, the great value of over 24 chapters in this outstandingly edited volume, where the whole is greater than its parts, derives from their collective contribution to an overdue illumination of her stories, countering of so-called histories, and challenge to hegemonic neocolonial thought, to secular.
Thank you so much, Professor Robert. So there are other contributors I see as well. If you allow me not to, ask you for your comments, I see Humaira Taisin, I see Rabia Amer, I see Nabiga Mahmoud, and all these wonderful contributors from Brazil, I see Isis and others, because there are audience over here as well when we promised them a Q&A. So after that, if we can, take someone from you on call again. Also, I see my mother, and I'm assuming there are family members with them as well. So, assalamu alaikum. Dalal wants to add something before we begin the Q&A?
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor William. But he was talking about his story and her story, and I told you that it's something like in our languages, in our Eastern languages, we doesn't have this dualism. Why? Because tarikh is tarikh in Arabic and also in Urdu and anything. So it doesn't have any gender. Not her story, not his story. Tarikh means writing the previous things. So we don't have this problem in our local languages. This is only a colonial language problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So you can imagine we have had many healthy debates and talking to one another during the whole conversation that the book is. So with that, I open the floor to all these wonderful, patient audience who have listened to us And if you have any questions to ask, if you have any comments, if you want to collaborate for future books and volumes that Professor Farid can support you in, just like he supported us, you're most welcome to connect. Any questions? Any critical questions? Yeah, sure, please go ahead. Busha Hoja, can you pass the mic, please?
Thank you so much. My voice is loud. Thank you so much. What happened was they were able to help me with other professors as well. I have I have assistant professor, Rabia Hamir, and also another assistant professor from
Pakistan.
From Pakistan. Her name is Nabaga Mahmood. And also we're able to look at everything from historical point of view, and also they're able to contribute from the social point of view. I'm able to give the historical context, and they were able to make the social happen. So yes, thanks.
So you collected data?
Yeah, I collect the data, and they make the page happen.
So this has been, like we said, a collaborative project, and there have been 38 contributors. So how we went about this was some of the chapters were written primarily in a language other than English. So we had Arabic and we had Turkish as well. And then a team of translators were attached to them, and they were very helpful in translating that. So in the book, the whole book will be in English, but some of the chapters are also there in Arabic. And there are abstracts in different languages. For instance, we have abstracts in Turkish, Arabic, Persian, Urdu, Portuguese, and Spanish. And this is how the languages are coming into conversation. I would have loved all these professors because they're representing multiple languages on, we could, at least if you could say everyone one sentence in your own language. This is also breaking this myth of colonialism. So we have so many beautiful languages, and the main language that we tried to converse with one another was the language of love and peace. So we were able to communicate very easily with one another. So I think this is also a distinct feature that we bring with this book. So I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Farah. If you want, you could even come here, or if you are audible. Okay.
early years that she then became a wife and she raised kids. And she's brought back to the fore again in a very different kind of way. And I just kind of wonder, the knowledge that the people like Nana Asma, the women who went from, like, we remember her, but the women who she taught, who then went and taught, right? The impact that they had in the way that they taught, is that any less of a contribution than what she did, that she was a kind of a scholarly woman? The work that women do every day, every minute, the work, you know, the caring, the qualitative difference in how women operate. And obviously I'm being very, you know, of course there's nuance and stuff. But where is that in this discourse? These are just reflections that I was thinking about. It was fascinating, and it's just such an exciting project, Ayesha. You know, it's really, really wonderful to see that this is coming through. But maybe we're just on.
So, would anyone from here would like to respond? Yes, Professor Tasneem? And then Ibrahim can add something.
I'm not actually responding as much as remembering what I read, you know, the articles that the main character I researched in my chapter. So it's very interesting that Bshira bin Murad, as she was struggling on two fronts against, you know, gender equality being equivalent to westernization, on one front, and on the other front against traditionalism and believing that the only place for women is, you know, at home. She was in a difficult position, as you can imagine, because she was, you know, being fought by both sides. And, you know, I remember from what she was writing is that she's saying that I am not advocating for women to actually absolutely go outside of home and go to contribute. They don't need to actually be working outside. We need to recognize the work they are doing by raising kids, by choosing to do that. And she actually was advocating what the fourth generation of feminists started to advocate later, by just recognizing, yani, women to participate, they don't need to be, you know, to become to correspond to this idea of liberation as described in the, you know, feminist Western ideals. So this just reminds me how actually these claims, you know, recognizing that in their everyday life, women can choose to actually, you know, just do that and not, besides that, having to correspond to the other idea. I come from a country who thinks that being at home for a woman is actually degrades her, because this is the state-led feminism that was imposed on us. If you don't go and get a degree, if you choose to stay at home, and then everyone around you would think that you just lost and wasted your life, and, you know, raising kids, etc., is still not recognized because it's a very modernistic, you know, view on women's rights, and that's the problem that I put at the center of the chapter that I contributed.
Okay, thank you. Ibrahim, you wanted to add something? Please add a brief reply.
Actually, Nana Asma Danfodio actually responded to this in our book, so yeah. I added it because she was a leader that recognized every woman in the society. And I can remember one chapter when she talked about one woman called Fatima. She said, Sister Fatima, she's not a Sufi woman, but she's responsible in society. When the woman needs help in terms of medical, she is there. And she was able to document each woman in society and what they are doing. And I think we're able to add that to the chapter as well, which is, Nana Asma Danfodio also have this problem of, like, they put one woman in one place and they don't recognize them, because our father, who was the founder, wrote about this same thing about men who did not educate their women, or who kept them at home, and who did that intentionally just to degrade them. So I think, inshallah, when the chapters come about Nana Asma Danfodio, I think there's a response to that, inshallah, in there.
Okay, any other question? Nobody wants to know how we convinced Springer to bring this out? Okay, because that's a whole long story as well. Having so many languages, so many people who don't fit into any one description, having protagonists who don't fit into any one description, having a time period that cannot be, justified. So for that you have to, I think, wait and read the story. But I think Aces wants to contribute something. If you can be very brief online, unmute yourself and just say something, maybe in your own language or whatever you want to say. There's a request from Brazil, from our sister, who wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Isis Vieira. I'm a PhD candidate in social history at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. I'm also one of the 9 authors from Brazil. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation and for taking this on this important challenge. I would also want to thank Professor Claudio for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here and contribute for the project that values the work and legacy of women thinkers from the Global South. So thank you very much.
Okay, so just one more comment I can take maybe from online. Rabea wants to add something. Please be very brief about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayesha, for allowing me to speak about, and thank you for making me part of this project. I have contributed a chapter on Mokhlasa Boobi, and being an academic of English literature, you pulled me out of my comfort zone to contribute that chapter. And I am also honored that I have contributed another chapter on Nana Asmahu with Dr. Nabiga and Ibrahim. And I am really grateful for Professor Alatas to have made such a brilliant contribution. And you too, Ayesha and Dalal, of course, your efforts are par excellence, I would say. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So, any other questions? Okay, my kids have a lot of questions. Okay, please.
I have a question for Dr. Dalal. What made her write this book, or how did the idea get to her? What was the writing?
Okay, Dalal, you have to come and answer this.
Thank you, Mustafa, for asking. It was not the first time that I thought about this question, where are women? Because usually every time you go to any course, lecture, conference, always there are some people who are mocking, between brackets, where are women? Now we see women like sociologists and so on, but where were they in the history? So for me, I definitely knew the answer, because in 2015, I wrote my first book about women in Islamic civilization. So I knew that women, in that book, I included 217 female figures from our Islamic civilization during the 14th centuries. And also in 17 different aspects of life. So doctors, faqihat, writers, and in all aspects of life. So for me, I knew the answer. But we need to dig deeply to know exactly where women were when the history of sociology was written. So as I've told you, we hear this question a lot, sometimes because people are rejecting or refusing to confess that, yeah, there used to be women who wrote in this field, and now we don't know about them. Sometimes because they don't want to listen. They don't want to read. They don't want to include them in the syllabuses of our academic courses. So that was the huge question that needs to be answered. And after that, I spoke with Ayesha, and together, we get this project to see the light. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Thank you.
So Igor has a question or some comment. Please be very brief, less than 1 minute. Igor Tiago. Tiago is a famous name in Brazil, I guess. Okay.
Salam alaikum. As a Brazilian sociologist, a young sociologist, it's an honor to be part of this project. And I want to thank you very much, the organizers. And to me, it's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So any other questions, comments, or anything? Yes, please.
I also wonder about your research method. While you are writing chapters, you, as I understand, you have sections, different sections based on different women figures. And I think you couldn't add all the women figures in that period. So how did you manage the choosing Turkish style while you decide like kind of edit from Turkish and from other countries? How did you choose these women figures?
Okay, would you like to say something about it? Because she's the one who had already had a list of female Muslim figures. So if you want to say something.
Thank you. Again, in my initial research, I found a lot of female public figures that used to write about sociology and about social thoughts in our societies. But the list that I conducted only contains women from Islamic world. So the list that I already conducted was not the full list or the final list that this book included. But as a snowball technique, we started asking our professors and others who are interested, so in your own country, would you suggest, would you nominate other figures? And then we had the final list of the figures. So at the beginning, only like in the initial draft, in the initial list, it was only women from our Islamic civilization, or let's say from Middle East, from Iran, and from Malaysia, and from Pakistan. But after that, when we spoke to Seyed Farid Alatas, thankfully he said that no, we need to make this larger because the world is more than these areas. And after that, we included the other areas, and they had nominated their own figures. So we had initial figures, and then every researcher or every person who was interested in our project nominated a different figure. That's how, and, sorry. One final thing. Now we are inviting any scholars who are interested in the second volume, inshallah, because definitely 25 figures are not enough. So we are starting the second, let's say, volume of this series. So anyone who is interested in adding more figures from different areas, from different geographical places, are more than welcome.
And also, it doesn't have to be, our explorations don't have to be limited to missing women. They could be missing men also, we could dig up. So it's a call for, bringing back all those missing figures who have been erased from the history of sociology or from other disciplines. So this kind of a thing can be replicated in other disciplines. We would really like to encourage and also enable and empower anybody who wants to take up similar projects. We would be very happy to guide, and we would be very, very happy to assist and let them know all the techniques, all the methods that we applied, but actually they were all developed on ground. So when we started working on them, then things started evolving, our paths started becoming more and more. So no, because we think that only women are marginalized. We assume, or there are assumptions, or there are perceptions that only women are marginalized or they are erased. Trust me, there are many men also who may have gone through that process. They may have been for a different reason, maybe not for the gender, but maybe because of the race, maybe because of being in a global south, maybe because of politics. So there could be many other, because we are looking at the intersectionality of how all these race, gender, class, ethnicity, they are all intersecting with one another, and at the end of the day, it's whoever is against power is going to be erased. We see that happening around us all the time. So I think there could be explorations that could be extended to so many other fields and so many other disciplines as well. So this is an interesting question, Eda. I know that. So this is, I think, all from our side for today. If the professors want to add something, and I'll end with a poem. And that would be it. So if you want to add any last comments, Dalal, you want to say something? And also if our co-authors can be very kind and just stand with us over here. Just come to the stage with us. And actually, all these supporters are also our contributing authors. For instance, Hamda and Mustafa and Murtaza and Danish back home and Meyer somewhere here. The children, my mother, Sophia, who's online, I guess, and other people who have contributed. Taiba is here. Ahmad, I saw him. I don't see him now. Brother Hassan is here. So these are all the support mechanisms that we have behind us. And Ilya is not here, I guess. So where's the mic?
Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now we need to take like a photo.
No,
to memorize
before the
this.
photo,
Yeah.
let's have a round of comments. They just wanted to have something to say.
Any comments before?
Any last word? Professor Claudio wanted to say something, I guess.
Yeah, just brief, two brief things. First, when this project started and the group from Brazil joined, I have to transmit this from them. You also became role models for them because of course, I mentioned we have more women on this at that side than men, and some Mariane Rocha, for example, is a mother herself, and she was like commenting with the other women that, and you know, sis, they are mothers as well. One has 3 children, the other have 5. Is that so? Yeah. So they were like, oh, and they are still carrying this out and all these things. So just.
Is a mother too.
So you see, so to mention that, yes, I mean, this is not a voyeuristic engagement. Like the engagement in its and the project is like a total fact. The second thing is that not always good news. I'm here also to colonize.
Okay.
So I brought Brazilian delicacies to help colonizing you with this taste of that place. So we share it.
Thank you so much. So
definitely share it.
I will just end with the dedication. Anybody else wants to add a comment? Last word? Okay. I'll end with a dedication, which is a poem. In al-uyuna manafidul arwah, a tribute to all the beautiful women who dare to dream, whose silence bespeaks endless narratives of fractured souls, fragmented selves, muffled voices, and shattered dreams. The title is But She Dares to Dream. How can it be that she dares to dream and thinks she is when she is not, save a broken heart and a shattered soul? In silent screams, she's all alone. She dares to be on her own. A captive of her solitude, she dreams and yearns for a place called home. She dreams of hope in the midst of pain. In times of loss, she dreams of gain. She dreams of love, she clings to faith, bereft of fear, defying wraith. For all the sins she's put to blame, in endless grace, she knows no shame. Once she was a shining star, now mere dust in the hands of fate. For some she's mad, some call her bad, yet she goes on through it all. No matter what, she does not stop. How can it be but she dares to dream? Hojam, this is like a joke. In the morning, my son was asking, okay, so can I share this with some other people? But did you write something? Oh, I said, I'm the editor of the book. So did you write something in it? I said, no. What do you mean I wrote something? So this is the same kind of a joke. Hojam, I penned this poem. This is a heartfelt feeling that is going to be part of the dedication of this book. So yeah, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So I think all of us can also join in the contributors on the stage and have a photograph together. Thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you so much for making this possible. All of you online, thank you so much as well.
So, would you include your answer that how we can have a photo as a contributors?
So I hope you guys have 1 to 2 together and then we can talk.
Yes,
okay.
as a contributors, then inshallah all of us can have some. So
they could keep sitting and we could stand behind them, or something like that. Is it? Okay.
In front, yeah.
Just 1 minute, I don't know how that process is.
There's a space here. They don't have to move. There's a space. Like some of us can stand here, others can stand here. There is a space to jump.